Hey, welcome to Color Break, issue number 3. We have a guest for the first time today. I don't know where we'll put her in the video, either left, right, bottom, top. Sarah, or I'm Loki Dumb online.
I am Loki Dom,
Sarah,
it's
how's it
true.
going?
Oh, it's going great. How are you guys?
Doing good.
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing pretty okay. Cody,
What's up,
anything
buddy?
new? You've been reading. You've been reading, right? I
Um,
think we all read.
yeah, what have I been? Actually, you know what? I have been reading Sandman a little bit. Because I have
Okay.
it. Yeah, and it's really good, but I'm still in like volume one, so I don't want to like say anything about it. But it turns out everyone who raves about Sandman, they're correct. It's good. Not surprising, I guess. Um, it's like one of the most acclaimed, whatever comics of all time. So I didn't think it was gonna be bad, but other than that, just trying to catch up on single issues, man. I'm always drowning in single issues. Since I was on
Yeah,
vacation, dude, now I'm 2 weeks behind. So,
I'm 5 weeks
yeah.
behind, so I feel you. Um, So I want to ask Sarah as our guest, as this is in some way a comic book podcast. I do want to know your story. I know me and Cody have talked about how we got into comic books, so I would like to know, Sarah, how'd you get into them?
Well, you know, I don't know when it started, but I've always been like into, like the DC and Marvel. When I was younger, it was mostly Marvel. Um, and then I don't know how somehow in like high school, like I was like 15 or 16, I like linked onto Batman. Like he became my person in every way. And that included like watching the animated series, all the movies, everything that involved that. But I didn't get into comics until this year when I was gifted a comic by Comic Book Stash. Oh my god, he's here.
Oh,
How'd you get
what?
him on?
It was me.
What was the
Yeah,
first
You know,
one?
it's funny because, oh yeah, please.
it was a Robin. It was the first appearance of Tim Drake as Robin.
Wow, you gave her a key issue, dude. You didn't keep it for yourself.
And it was signed.
What?
I know. I was not prepared. I should have brought it, but it's in my collection.
Nice.
Listen, it's good friends. It's with good
Yeah, I was gonna
friends.
say, dude. Jeez, man, I would have. I'm not giving anyone any keys, dude. You kidding me?
But
Have you
it's
seen my
it's
giveaway,
funny
dude? I give
because
people junk, dude. All my junk I don't want.
it's funny because I was from the get go I thought she had already read comic books. So I was like, hey, this makes sense. She likes Batman, she likes Robin. First Robin, first Tim Drake. So I think I just found out right now that was the first one she ever got.
Yeah. I mean, like, I had a Looney Tunes as a kid. It's
Right.
probably somewhere in this room. But my mom would be like, just hold on to it. It might have value. I never read it.
The Looney Tunes, yeah, yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
First appearance of Daffy Duck, I think, right?
Oh, maybe.
No, no. So that's like the interesting part, right? Like I feel like, and I think Christian's the same. Like when we discussed our comic book origin stories and stuff. But like, there's all this comic book media when we were younger, because like we're at that age, right? So, Batman the animated series is on TV, and like the Nolan Batman movies are coming out, right? So it's like, I feel like whereas like a lot of people in our crossover comic server, they're really into like, let's say X-Men, right? I just never watched, the X. I wasn't that into X-Men because I didn't watch the animated X-Men show or anything like that. So I'm with you, Sarah, where Batman was like my like first thing that I latched onto. With Spider-Man too, because the Spider-Man, there's always Spider-Man media coming out, but Batman was definitely my first comic book love without even having read any of the comic books. So
Cody, I'm so sorry. Um, X-Men was before Batman for me.
I'm just saying. Oh, okay. So you liked X-Men like way before.
I watched X-Men Evolution as a kid,
mm,
and that was just like peak childhood right there. It was just like all the X-Men like going to high school, like doing regular thing and dealing like with being a hero and like figuring out their
mm.
powers. Like I think it was like watching that as a kid, then I started to like latch on to other things such as Batman.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. X-Men is like one of
It's
those
funny.
knowledge gap. I just don't know much about X-Men, but
I know
If
there's
you ask
like
me,
a
I don't
billion.
really. I don't really think I watched like I know I watched them, but I can't recall watching any superhero cartoon shows. I mean, if you count me being with my little brother while he watched Superhero Squad, then I was on it. That's
which one's
about
that?
it.
I didn't even know
I
that,
can't.
dude.
Superhero Squad is in the Marvel universe and it's the Avengers, but they sort of look like toys. Like they're like super like squished and like buff. I don't know how to
Gotcha.
explain it, but it probably came out when I was like 15. Uh, and I know my cousin watched the X-Men, and I know it was a part of my childhood. I just don't remember watching any of it. Like I can't be like, oh, I love watching the Batman animated series because I didn't.
Gotcha. Yep.
But for
Even
some
that
reason,
was
they were
like a
all
little
in my life.
before us.
Yeah, like I remember my mom would record reruns for me on like VHSs, so I just have like all the VHS. They probably don't work anymore or whatever. I don't know, but
Yeah,
when's the last
I
time I
streamed
plugged in a
it
VHS? Yeah. Oh, you streamed it.
on Amazon Prime, yeah, in like
Nice.
2015, 2014.
Right.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I remember the Batman Beyond show. Now I don't
Mm.
remember watching it, but I remember being like, this is a thing that exists with me, and in my time, I might have watched it. I sort of know about these things, and I like if you ask me like the characters, I can name all of them. I just cannot tell you a single storyline.
I think yeah, that one was a little weird too because like I'm same with you. I remember watching it, but it felt more adult. Like it definitely was like more mature than like the Batman animated series, even though like they're the same you know universe or whatever. But it definitely felt more like kind of scary, even like it was so dark and more mature. Even just from the intro of Batman Beyond. Um, so I always felt like, ooh, this is cool. I'm probably not allowed to be watching this right now. So I kind of had to like maybe I'm like sneak watching it. Um,
I mean,
but yeah, that's
what's
what I remember
scarier
is
than the
the like
future?
insane intro. But what'd you say?
There's nothing scarier. There's nothing scarier than just the future, man.
Right, like the dystopian, like awful, awful future. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know
I
what
know
you're
they really
saying.
showed
Awful.
us like
Gotham
old
was never
ass
good.
Batman
Right, right.
ahead of its time.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I do feel like it, and it's funny. Like people don't really know how much these shows impact like what you become. Like I didn't think the MCU would get me to read comics, and now I'm here.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like there's a lot of introduction. Like growing up, maybe you know about Iron Man, right? But then MCU comes out and takes this like sort of obscure-ish character. I mean, he was like a mainstay in the Avengers in the comics for however long, but I don't think anyone would say like, "Oh yeah, Iron Man. He was my number one before the MCU came out," right? Maybe there are some people, but like to me, he was always like a B tier hero, if that makes sense. But then MCU happens and he just pops off and gets a lot
Rightfully
of
so.
people. Right, right, right. I mean, RDJ, right? Really,
Dude.
he is Iron Man, right? So
Yeah.
Well, and I do want to ask Sarah, since she is our guest. I know I have provided some comic books to you over the past couple of months, but I do want to talk about now that you have gotten more into reading single issues and an ongoing series. Just what are the series you're reading, and what's the change from like just watching these shows or these movies and jumping into the comic books now?
Okay. Okay, let me start out with some background.
Hmm.
So, my name online is I'm low key dumb, and as much as I wish that was a joke, it's actually because I have a learning disability. So, reading is difficult. So, I avoid books in every way. But once I started reading comics, I was like, wait, I can actually read this. I'm enjoying my time reading. And that's never happened in my life. I tried to read the first chapter of Harry Potter. I threw the book across the room. I couldn't do it. I'm sorry. I just can't read. So when I was able to read comics and actually like learn more about the characters that I've known all my life was crazy. And I've only read a little bit so far. Like I'm starting with Batman. I've like restricted myself to Batman, then I'll expand so I don't like spend all my money on like
Yeah,
buying everything.
that's what
So
I
I've
do.
right. Oh no. So I've read year one, Long Halloween, like the starter ones, The Man Who Laughs. Right now, I'm about to start Dark Victory. I hope I win your giveaway then.
Right, right, right.
But yeah, that's where I'm at currently. But I am reading like a couple single issues, like Jurassic League and Poison Ivy currently.
Nice. Yeah, I think that might be a good way to start too, because Batman is one of those characters. Like he's obviously he's been around for like 80 whatever years. So he has a lot of like super iconic stories, and you can just look up top 25 Batman stories, and like all of them are bangers, right? So that's definitely like I I'm trying to think, and maybe some people can like comment below or whatever. Is there another character who has like as consistent of a backlog as Batman? I know some people might say, like all the Daredevil runs are always, like 7 out of 10s or better. You know what I mean? But I feel like Batman is a character that just because he's been around for so long, there's a ton of different, trades you could pick up, like year one, like you said, or
And
Long
and it's
Halloween, and
it's interesting for me. It's interesting for me because Batman is a character. When you ask people, tell me a Batman story that I should read, they never go for like, man, Detective Comics 27. You gotta get on that. No, it's usually more recent runs, or at least like 90s and up. You know, I never hear people
right,
recommend like, hey, that 70s Batman run was fantastic. And I know that a big part of it was the code I don't remember what it was called, that they made it more kid friendly because they didn't want kids to be influenced by the dark nature of Batman. But uh
right.
but yeah, I never hear people recommend anything before the 90s, honestly. But even in the past 30 years, there's 1,000 Batman stories that people just keep telling me to read.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where because he's such like, 'cause, I mean, I don't know what you guys would think. Maybe this is like a different conversation, but you guys think Batman's like the most popular superhero in the whole world? I don't know. Would you guys agree with that? Or like it's
Yeah.
probably between like Batman, Superman, and like Spider-Man. Those are probably like the top three. Um,
Yes.
but so because Batman is so popular, all like the top writers and top artists want to work like it's their dream to work on a Batman book, right? So then when they get the opportunity, they all go for the fences and try to knock it out of the park. And then so you end up with okay, every artist writer who's touched Batman has like had an iconic story. Um, so it's like I think that's a lot of a big part of that is people like to when you're a kid you dream like, oh, do I have a Batman story? Would it be so cool if I got to work on Batman? Um, and there's even though he's been around for so long, there's like a lot of different like twists and different things you can people are still iterating on Batman and evolving him even now with just like the Chip Zdarsky run. Um, so yeah, it's like I don't know. Personally, I don't have like a Batman story like a dream of mine. I would have to like think about it more, but I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like I think it's really cool that all these different teams um, have impacted like the 80-year history of Batman. So
It's funny to me because there's some writers that just do that. Like, I mean, I would love, and I don't know if people would like this. I think a lot of people would not be happy with it, but I would love to see someone like Donny Cates just like do it. Especially reading like the Donny Cates Thor run and all of that. Like, he's a a writer who will be like, anything I can use, I will use. He'll go back and read the 1940s Batman and be like, oh, I like that one character. I'm gonna put him in, and that's something that I feel like is cool with Batman. It's such a long history that you could just do anything with it. You can bring someone from like 60 years ago and it'll feel current. So that's why I like the character so much, I think, because you would think that in like such a long time, like 80 years, they'd run out of ideas, but no, they haven't.
No, they keep knocking it out of the park. Like, even in media, like, you have, of course, you know, the new Batman film, but also, like, the TV series that are connected to it, like Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
Who actually came from the animated series itself, and now she's, like, a huge character in and of itself.
Huge fan favorite, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point too. Like, not even just, you know, we're talking a lot about Batman, but even just like the Bat family in general. Like everybody has like, oh, you know, there's Dick Grayson Nightwing fans over here, and then a lot of people like, maybe it's just because I'm exposed to it on TikTok, but it seems like people are really into like the niche Bat family members too.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, I think it's so cool that like the Bat family itself is so diverse that everybody can pick, you know, their own favorite member, and then they can go off and explore based on their stories too. So yeah.
But I mean, think about it like this: like we talk about villains, you know, like we were saying, like Batman, Spider-Man, Superman being the most popular superheroes. I cannot think of a more popular villain than the Joker. Honestly.
Yeah, for better or
I
for worse,
can't-
but yeah.
I can't think of anyone else because, like, let's say Superman is like the ideal superhero, right? Which is an argument that a lot of people make, and I understand it. Most people cannot name a single Superman villain. Like, if you go up to like someone on the street and ask, like, "Hey, name a Batman villain," they might say Harley, they might say the Joker. No one's gonna say General Zod just off the top of their head. No one's just gonna think of it. So I think it's interesting that the Batman goes beyond just the character, and it's the entire universe.
Right. Yeah. Like, I mean, you even look at it like what DC is publishing, right? I think I forgot who said it. Maybe it was that nerdy Papa Bear. Shout out. But I think he like broke it down. He's like, oh, it's literally 60% of books DC publishes is like in the Bat family, like for the next like however many months. And for better or for worse, like that is what sells at DC. Of course, I would like to see more miniseries focus on more niche characters, but it is what it is. Batman and his associated sub universes super popular and it sells all the time. I think to your point, Christian, I'm trying to think even like the Superman villain that it's not even on a level of the Joker, but it's probably like Lex Luthor. Like that's probably what people think of. But even then, you're right. It's like, you probably name at least 5 Batman rogues before you get to Lex Luthor on the terms of popularity. So
I wonder if anyone would be able to draw him from memory. Like, people could draw Joker,
right.
But, like, if you ask them to draw Lex, like, they're gonna struggle.
Right. Like, the only thing...
It's funny because...
the only characteristic I can think of is just bald.
Yeah.
Put him in a suit. Just bald in a suit.
I mean, but it goes that so far that I didn't even think to mention Lex. I went for Zod. I forgot about his existence altogether. And he's a big character.
Yeah.
He's not just like a nobody.
Yeah, but I think it's one of those things like, people might say, Riddler or, I don't know, Two-Face and like all this stuff before they get to Lex Luthor, but
yeah.
I don't know. That's how it is. Yeah. So I guess, Sarah, a question for you, just to get to know you better. What would you say is your favorite, maybe like top 2 like superhero movies? I'm just curious.
Ooh.
I don't mean to put you on a spot.
No, it's okay. Let's say, okay, it's a little basic, but they're good for a reason. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
And the Batman.
Like the most recent one, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that could be a whole other topic, Christian. I don't know if I don't know if you would agree, but I think for me, the most recent Batman movie is the best Batman movie ever. I don't know if it's a hot take that might like open a can of
Uh,
worms down in the comment
I will
section, but
I'll explain it like this. I'll explain it the way I've been saying it, and people don't have to agree with me. I think when it comes to Dark Knight and the Batman, I think the Batman is the best Batman movie, and I think the Dark Knight is the best movie about the Batman. Like
okay.
like the Dark Knight doesn't need the name Batman attached to it. It could just be a cool like vigilante story. But the
That's a good
Batman
point.
is the essence of the character. Like Gotham feels like a character in that movie. Everyone feels like the characters in the comics. Where in the Nolan movies, while they're fantastic and I will rewatch them 100 times, it doesn't need to be Bruce Wayne. It could just be another billionaire.
That's a great point. Yeah, I
Yeah,
kind of like that explanation a lot. Yeah.
I would definitely
I mean,
agree.
I had I was lucky enough to watch the Batman with Sarah. So I know her reaction, but I would like her to talk about it because I have my opinions on the movie. I think it's a 10 out of 10. I'll put it out there, but I want to know. I mean, haven't been there with her. I know how excited she got, but I want to hear more from her because it's a character that she loves so much.
Hmm. Well, we should probably preface by saying that we are friends in real life,
Mm.
although we are in this online community together. We met in college, what, 4 years ago? 5 years
Yes,
ago?
4 years ago. You're a friend of my
4 years
girlfriend. Well,
ago,
now my friend.
yes. And yeah, so we live close to each other, so we sometimes go comic shopping or we go to the movies. And we got to see the Batman together, like he was saying. Um, and that was just it's what I've been waiting for. Um, as much as the Nolans are great, this was a breath of fresh air from those, because it wasn't just like it was. I don't know. The the Dark Knight trilogy felt like a Christian Bale project, which is not bad in any way. But I think the difference is that with the Batman is that um, Robert just complimented Batman. He didn't. I don't know if this is making sense, but he like you think of the Dark Knight trilogy, you think of Christian Bale, but when you think of Batman, you think about Batman.
Right. Yeah, yeah. Like you can see past Robert Pattinson's beautiful face, and you're like watching Bruce Wayne actually. Yeah, I totally agree. Do you remember?
Yes.
Okay. Do you guys remember? I forgot when this was. Maybe it was like 4 years ago. I don't even remember at this point. 'Cause I know it took so long to make the Batman due to COVID and all that stuff. But do you guys remember the test screening of Robert Pattinson in the suit, like stepping out of the shadows? Um, like that's image is still in my mind. I was like, this is going to be insane. And then you attach, Matt Reeves as director. I'm a huge fan of the, his trilogy. Did he direct the first one? I can't remember, but the Planet of the Apes movies he did. Um, so I was a huge fan of Matt Reeves before, and then that test screening of Robert Pattinson, I'm like, dude, he's Batman. Like I
Yeah.
can, I've seen Twilight, like whatever, it's whatever. But Robert Pattinson
Listen,
is a
I
good
enjoyed
actor
Twilight.
once you
Okay.
get past. People
Yeah.
enjoy Twilight, yeah, sure, but I
But
don't
you
think.
don't watch the Batman and think of Twilight.
Right,
You
right,
don't look at Robert's
Not at
face and
all.
you're like, "Oh my god, that's the vampire that sparkled." It's
right.
not like that.
He like totally melts into, like Gotham, like Christian was saying, like he just
Yes.
blends right in, and he feels like he's always been there. That's I don't know. That's but yeah,
That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I really need to
And I feel
rewatch
like
it because I've only seen it twice, but
Hmm.
the major criticisms on the movie were like, oh, he's not a good Bruce Wayne and all that, but like, Bruce Wayne is not a good Bruce Wayne in the movie. Like, let's be honest about it. He's not Bruce Wayne yet. Bruce Wayne is a personality that is developed. He's a public image. So I think
yeah,
he did it perfectly. He's still grieving and he's still dealing with, the darkness. And he's beginning to understand that he has to become a symbol, but he also has to become himself. So I think it was a good Bruce Wayne for the era the movie takes place in. It's only the second year. And you know what? And I'll
For
say
sure.
this: I'm happy we didn't get the Joker. I'm happy we didn't get a Joker origin. Just throw him in there.
Yeah.
He's been there for a
That
while.
that's
Cool, yeah.
that's kind of what I was, saying earlier when you mentioned that Joker is probably the most popular villain. And I said for better or for worse, 'cause I think right now it's kind of like, yo, we get it. Joker, okay, cool. Maybe like a little bit of Joker fatigue, right? Like every DC project doesn't need the Joker. I promise. I promise you guys. um,
You think they'd learn from their mistake, but no.
yeah, I mean, we don't have to talk about it too long, but like Jared Leto's Joker, right? Like, let's just stop having the Joker for a little bit. Take a little break. um, although I do like the design of the Joker in the most recent Batman movie. He looks freaky, like really
Yeah.
scary. So
My
yeah.
my hope,
wanna
and I've
see
heard other
more.
people talk
Mm.
about this. I wish they handle the Joker sort of as what they do with Calendar Man in Long Halloween. Like he's there, but we don't really like get to see him in action. He's just like a consultant. I kind of want that.
Yeah,
That seems to be the way right now, at least.
that's it, Christian. This is a great conversation, but that's a great segue, dude. Because our big topic for this episode is kind of related, and I'm sure this will be like the first video game series where we would have talked about anyways. But our big topic is comic book video games because I'm low-key dumb, Sarah, streaming all the time, grinding away. But she's been streaming a lot of comic book video games. And I don't know if that's on purpose. Like, I don't know if that but it's just like, what Sarah likes to play. So I figured that'd be a good big topic to have when we had Sarah on. And the first one that I want to start with, because I think it's my favorite, and, we could talk about this, but the Arkham games are so good, right? That's not a hot take. Everyone knows it. Do you guys think the Arkham games are the best superhero video games? I guess that's the first question I'll ask you guys.
If not the best, they are the most classic.
Right,
Because I feel like their success is what led to all the other ones.
right. Yeah, totally. Like, I think, and then I'll throw it off to Christian, but I think for me, it goes straight back to what we were talking about before, but since Batman was the first character I latched onto, like playing Arkham Asylum, like blew my mind, right? Because before that, I'm trying to think if there's been a video game that you've been like the Batman, not, there might have been like a Game Boy game that I played like a long time ago, a 2D side scroller type thing, right? But playing as the Batman, using all the different gadgets in Arkham Asylum, like solving, you're doing detective work actually, right? Really puts you in the shoes of Batman, and I just fell in love. And I think the Arkham games are, you can't separate them from like the Batman property, but like they are like better video games, and they happen to be, a Batman video game, if that makes any sense. So Christian, I guess I'll throw it to you. Like, what do you think of the Arkham games? I don't even know if
I
you've played
can.
them or not, but
So funny story about the Batman Arkham games. They were my birthday gift this year from Sarah. She
oh,
got me
nice.
the trilogy, and so yeah, I haven't finished them, and she knows that, so I'm not hiding anything. I'm not good at sticking to video games. Like I will start playing them and then take like a 6-month break and then come back. I think for me, video games are this interesting thing because I love them, but I just don't play them enough. Um, if since I haven't finished them, I don't want to get too much into Arkham, but I do want to hear your guys' opinion on it. I will say my two favorite superhero video games, and they don't make sense, are number one, Spider-Man, the PS4 Spider-Man, now PC and PS5. Love it. Fantastic game. Amazing Peter Parker. Whatever. My second one is The Incredibles for the GameCube. I don't care what anyone says. That's a superhero game, and it's fantastic. And I
Yeah, dude,
remember
I count
running his
that.
dash across the
100%.
water. Running his dash across the water was my favorite thing to do. And so yeah, Spider-Man, The Incredibles. But I will say that what I have played of I think Arkham Asylum is fantastic. It's a work of art, and I feel like I'm Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, I think you brought up. So wait, Christian, the remind me, is the GameCube version of The Incredibles? Is that the one that's like a sequel before Incredible? You know, obviously before Incredibles 2 came out. Is that like the Mole Man one, or is it based
So
on the
I
movie?
I'm personally thinking about the one that's based on the movie. I never played
Gotcha.
the Rise of the Underminer, although
Right.
I should maybe. But my issue was that for a while people would be like, I'd be like, The Incredibles used to be my favorite Pixar movie. Now it's Ratatouille. That doesn't matter. But I used to say like I want an Incredibles 2, and people would be like, but we got the Rise of the Underminer. I never cared about the game. I wanted a new movie, so I never played the game because I was angry at it.
Gotcha. You had a hatred, like a young hatred. Nice.
Oh my
Um,
god.
okay, so that opens up like kind of a good door we can step through. Sarah, since I know you just played all. Wait, did you beat all the Arkham games
Yeah.
recently? Okay, because you
Yes.
played like I was obviously watching when you played like Arkham Origins. Out of those four, what would you say is the best one?
Um, for me personally, I liked City and Origins. So City's number two, and then Origins is out of the trilogy, but within the same universe.
Right. Yeah, I think City is definitely I think my favorite. I know I feel like majority of people would probably like say City or Asylum. Not
Yeah.
that Arkham Knight was bad. It was just like I don't know, like 8 out of 10 instead of a 9 out of 10. You know what I mean? Like it's
You
still
know,
like
yeah.
head and shoulders above like all other video games. But um, and then Arkham Origins, that one's interesting because obviously shares a lot of the DNA. It has a lot of the same, probably built in the same engine as the other ones, but different developer, not developed by Rocksteady. So I feel like Rocksteady kind of, I don't even think that one was included in the gift you gave to Christian, probably, right? Like they kind of, Rocksteady's like, we didn't want them to do that game. It's kind of like the bastard child, uh, like reading interviews and stuff. Like they felt like the developers WB Montreal was like messing in their sandbox and like, no, we don't want it. So I always thought that was interesting. That I don't know, but WB like made them make the game because they didn't have anything coming out in the next 2 years or whatever. Um, but anyways, that's all to say that I think City is my favorite as well. And then Christian, you brought it up, dude. That's the other big elephant in the room. I would say it's the Arkham games and then Spider-Man PS4. Because that game, oh man, Christian. Because I don't know, did you guys ever play Spider-Man 2 like on the PS2 like back in the day or whatever?
I remember
No.
It's
playing
like
Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3.
it for the longest time it was, and I think a lot of people would agree, that was like the peak of video game, like comic book adaptations. Um, but then like playing it now, it doesn't hold up because it's from that era of games where it's just like, it's kind of wonky controls, like the camera, they're still trying to figure it out and stuff like that. But then Spider-Man PS4 comes out, and it just like, it's insane. It feels so fluid. You are Spider-Man in the same way that the Arkham games made you feel like Batman. Like
I think it's
just
because of Arkham.
yeah, it shares a lot. Like definitely for the fighting and stuff like that. The open world, like kind of the Riddler clues are kind of similar to like whatever the backpacks or whatever, right? Like it shares a lot of the same DNA.
Yeah.
But just flying through the city, like swinging, and it feels so good. Um, that's like dude, sometimes maybe not recently, but maybe like a year ago, I would turn on Spider-Man PS4 and just swing around. Like I beat the game, there's nothing to do, but I'm just swinging around because it just feels so good. Um, so I think that's the other elephant in the room. I would say is Spider-Man PS4. So Sarah, can you talk a little bit about Spider-Man PS4? I don't know if you beat it or not, but
So I was fortunate enough to play it for the first time this year because I don't have a console except like a Switch.
right,
So when it was available on PC is when I played it for the first time. I completed the main story. I still have like a DLC or two left. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with it because it reminded me so much of Arkham, but it was Spider-Man.
right,
And I haven't read like any Spider-Man, so it was fun to like learn more about the characters that I've known just from the movies.
Right.
Um, it was great, and like you said, the swinging amazing, almost as good as the swinging in the Lego games that Spider-Man is in.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true too.
But yeah, I think that they did Spider-Man like very well in the game. I've had lots of fun so far with it since I've been playing it for the first time this year, as well as the Arkhams.
Yeah.
We have all played Spider-Man here. I want to know your opinions on this because I think a big takeaway from the game or something that everyone liked was that you could use different skins. My personal favorites are 2099 and the Future Foundation black and white suit. So I want to throw it to you guys. What are your favorite skins to use in the game? Yeah.
In Spider-Man, like specifically, I gotta pull up a list. Oh, so you know for the longest time I would use the one from the movie, like Tobey Maguire's suit when they added that.
Yes, yeah.
That was pretty cool. Like as a like just an homage or whatever. Wasn't there was like an animated looking one, right? That looked like it was cell shaded and stuff like that. I think that's the one I probably used the most of. Did they have like a counter? This would be interesting. I don't think it exists. Maybe there's like a mod for it on PC. But just like a counter of you played the game this many hours using this suit. I'd be interested in seeing that because I think even though you're unlocking a lot more and maybe you'll switch them, like I think everybody has like their go-to, like Christian's saying. But I think for me it was the cell shaded one.
I would like the underwear skin for research purposes, but that one's hard to get, and rightfully so.
I think there was also a from the comics the bombastic Bagman.
Yes, I like that one.
Where he's wearing it on his head. I mean, that's just a classic.
I know. I've had to take it off a couple times because like it'll jump into like a dramatic cutscene and then it's just like broken with this bag head. It's supposed to be so serious, and then I'm just like giggling.
Oh, obviously Spider-Punk was pretty cool. I used that one a lot. Even though I don't know anything about like Spider-Punk in the comics or whatever, I just thought that suit was cool. The vintage comic book suit, that's the one that's cell shaded. So
I want that
cool.
one.
So Christian, you would say the 2099 suit?
2099 there's something about it because I own the first issue of Spider-Man 2099, not the first appearance, the first issue. I think the first 5. So I really like the character. I haven't read enough about it to like be in love with it and tell you everything right now. I just like the look, and my favorite thing about Spider-Man 2099, and it's a fun fact for anyone listening to Color Break right here, is that the suit is not blue, but the suit's supposed to be black, but they couldn't do shadows on a black suit, so they just made it blue in the comics. But like when they talk about it in the comics, they mention it as being black. So it was really funny to see the suit in the game as a black suit.
Right.
As a
yeah, that's a good point too. I'm like,
That's
sorry
a cool
if I'm,
nod.
right. Sorry if I'm like distracted over here. I'm just like looking at all the suits. So cool. I'm looking at the undie suit specifically. If anybody wants to, we'll put that on the thumbnail, Christian. Remember that, all right? But yeah, so I think so. You know, we talked about Arkham games. We talked about the Spider-Man games. So now I feel like we can open it up for the rest of just like any other games people want to talk about. The one I want to start with though is, have you guys played Ultimate Alliance? I don't know if.
No, I
No.
don't think I know about that.
Okay, so I'll explain it just a little bit because it's always been a favorite of mine, and the sequel actually came out. It's a Switch exclusive. Definitely recommend it. It's a lot of fun. Essentially, it's a 4-person co-op, or you can just play like one person and switch between. But you can play like all of the heroes in the Marvel universe pretty much. It's like as you progress through the story, you'll like meet up with Doctor Strange, and then he joins your party, and you can like interchange with all those different for whatever missions, and you're leveling them up and stuff like that. It's pretty much like a top-down beat 'em up, just beat up all the faceless goons, like who gives a crap, and then you fight bosses and stuff. But that game, I had it on the PS2, and that's always stuck with me because it allowed me to, I didn't read the comics back then, right? But you got to figure out, oh, like, all these different heroes that were obscure to me at the time. You get to join their party and, hearing their dialogue and kind of learning more about them in that way. I always thought that was super cool. And I think for the latest game, there must be, I don't know, there must be like 100 different heroes you could play as. Um, so I know like that's how I got to experience all these different heroes that I otherwise would not have been able to. So Ultimate Alliance has always stuck with me. But the third one just came out, so I definitely recommend that. It's probably one of the best Switch games. So
But I
Oh.
mean, you bring up an interesting topic, and I know, like we mentioned, Sarah streams on Twitch. I'm Loki down for anyone. Um, she streamed. Well, you, Sarah, you streamed all the Lego Marvel and the Lego DC games. Not all of the DC ones yet, but I personally think the Lego Marvel games are fantastic. Like all the characters you can use, and the story's actually fun. Like it's not for kids, you know. Sometimes they sell Lego games as they're for kids, but like no, those are great stories.
I feel like at least with the second Marvel one, um, they're Marvel knew what they're doing because I feel like they're sort of following the formula of Lego Marvel superheroes too. Like apart from like the first game, like the second game had like more characters like Black Bolt, She-Hulk, Miss Marvel, and all of those are like being reintroduced now, to the MCU, which is really interesting. So, I don't know if, Lego Marvel Superheroes 2 was just like coincidentally like picking up all these characters or if this was like meticulously planned, but there are some interesting points in that game that are coming up now. And dude, all of those Lego games have been so fun. They're not just for kids, for sure.
yeah, so that's a good point too because I remember playing because you didn't need. I forget it was the first Marvel Lego game, but that was more focused on like the Avengers, right? Like it didn't really have like it had a lot of characters, but it didn't have nearly as much as two did, right? I,
Right.
I think that's correct. So I remember playing the second one with my girlfriend, and that's kind of how she, you know, she's like, what is all this nerd shit you're always into? And so like having her sit down with me, and it's a Lego game, it's very accessible to everybody, but like you guys are saying, it's also just a really fun story. So playing with my girlfriend, we're swapping, we're trying to figure out all the puzzles and stuff like that. She's like jumping off the edge over and over, like losing all my studs, and I'm getting upset. But yeah, so like I don't know, that's a great point too. Is the Lego games, they might be like super underrated. I know that back in the day, like I think it was maybe on like DS. I think I played like the Lego Batman game. Um, so like those are definitely have a spot in my heart as well. It's always cool when you know your your two loves meet, right? So like my love of DC and um, in video games and just getting to play them, super cool. But yeah, I think the Lego
And you're a
games are
fan of
awesome.
Lego.
Right, so it's like a three. I don't want to say a
Mm-hmm.
three-way. That might be a little, but okay. So we brought up the Lego Marvel, the Lego superhero games. What's your guys' like favorite out of? I think they haven't done a Batman one in a while, right? But the most recent one I think was Marvel
DC
Superheroes.
supervillains.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that was like the most recent, right?
I'm having a lot of fun with that right now. Um, and then I liked Batman 2 and 3. Nothing wrong with 1, but it was just, it's an old game. It kept crashing. I couldn't finish it, unfortunately, just because of tech, but I had a lot of fun when I tried it. And then the first Lego Marvel was really fun. I haven't played Avengers yet.
Gotcha. So like even in those like you kind of gravitate more towards the DC side, which makes sense because that's what I did too. Um, but yeah, Christian, what do you think? What would be your favorite Lego superhero game?
For me, I don't know if it's Lego Marvel Superheroes 2. Because I just remember like unlocking like every single character because there's like 300 characters at least. I might be wrong, but like hyperboles are a thing, you know. Uh, I don't know. There was something about it, and my problem with Lego games is that I grew up playing Lego Star Wars the complete saga, and it was like, I think when I think of Lego Star Wars, it was like the bare minimum. It was super basic, no open world. You just cantina episodes, you're out.
Through
So
each door, yep.
there was some adjustment when I had to like get into just an open world Lego city. Uh, but I liked it. I liked that you could discover different characters around town and you could see the Marvel headquarters. It was just a fun game. So I would say when it comes to superheroes, I think it's Lego Marvel Superheroes too, but I'm not good with the names. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel you.
So, yeah.
Okay, so like there's those games, right? But I kind of wanted to maybe not rapid fire, but maybe I'll say one, and then if you guys have anything else you want to add, just let me know. Um, but I think a really important genre for superhero video games has been fighting games, right? It's just like the perfect marriage of, you know, it's kind of easy to translate what they do in the comics into a video game. So the one that comes to mind for me for superhero fighting games specifically is Injustice. Have you guys played Injustice?
I'm very close to starting it.
Nice. No, that'll be fun to watch too. So, um, but I'm like
I
classically so bad at fighting games. But so
oh
Christian, what'd you say?
I
What were you saying about the?
I never started Injustice. Well, I started it, never finished it because I'm so bad at fighting games that I hated it. It's not a bad game. I'm bad at it. So I just gave up. And I'm sorry if I'm not talking. This is a small delay for me. Um, if anyone's wondering, I'm a bit quiet today. But Injustice, and I know Injustice was impactful because there's an Injustice comic book now. So it's an important game to the DC universe itself. I just happen to be the worst player ever to exist.
No, I feel you. Like I'm really bad at fighting games as well. But I think that Injustice was a little different because, compared to like maybe Mortal Kombat, where it's got a story, but maybe it's not the most important part of the game. Injustice has like a pretty compelling story, along with being like a really competent fighting game, developed by NetherRealm, so that it's to be expected. Like they know fighting games is in their DNA. Um, but yeah, Injustice and Injustice 2 are like, some of the better superhero video games because they kind of evolve that genre in the same way that maybe the Arkham games did for like open world, like RPGs, if you want to call them that. So just moving through the list here, did you guys ever play the Deadpool game? I know that might be a pretty.
The Deadpool game is a fantastic game. It's not on PC. They don't sell it on Steam. They don't sell it anywhere. And I have been thinking of buying it for Sarah because I think she would have fun on stream and people would enjoy it. I would enjoy watching anyone play the Deadpool game because they capture the characters so well. It's wonderful, honestly.
Yeah, I think it is Nolan North who voices Deadpool, and it really was just like perfect casting. I guess I'm looking it up right now before I don't know. But so the unfortunate part with that game is it got caught in like a bunch of licensing, like whatever. So it got delisted from pretty much everywhere. I know it was on like PS3. I think that's where I played it. But yeah, it might be like pretty hard to find now because of classic license game problems. But moving along here. I mean, we talked about. So I never played Marvel versus Capcom. I know that's like a lot of people's like favorite fighting game, not even just superhero fighting games. Do you guys have any experience with Marvel versus Capcom?
No.
Yeah.
My experience with Marvel vs. Capcom was getting it, playing it for like a straight, just one day with my cousins and playing as every single character, and then realizing I was never gonna beat them and just quit. That's just my story, man. That's every game
with
I
fighting
play,
games
man.
or with every game?
Uh, I don't know, man. I mean, the games I like, and as silly as it sounds, is I like really dumb game. Like if you ask me my favorite video games, sure I can throw you some Fallout and I can throw you Skyrim, but I can also throw you Chicken Little. Barnyard, the game is fantastic. Over the Hedge, like I don't know why. It's just Voodoo Vins, which I streamed for like a month once. Voodoo Vins, it was for the Xbox. Is my favorite game of all time. I just like stupid, simple games. I'm not good with like thinking too much or fighting well.
Yeah, I mean that's the great thing is that there's a video game for every taste.
For
Like
sure.
if you want a game that's just fun, like you can go have fun with it, or you can try something challenging, or have something in the middle. And at
Yeah.
least for me, like I didn't own a gaming PC, and like I just got it like this year, and I don't have a console. Like I said, all I have is a Switch. So all of these games are pretty new to me, but I'm really enjoying like playing them all, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't want anyone to feel discouraged by like starting any games because, they might seem expensive, but there's a ways around that. And I don't mean pirating. I mean like you can buy keys online. Like I've gotten like all the Arkhams for like maybe $10 collectively.
Right.
And you have major games like Injustice 2, like we were saying, and Guardians of the Galaxy right now are on Xbox Game Pass for like $10 a month. So you don't have to, pocket out like $60, every couple weeks to play a really good game. Like these are available for everyone.
Yeah, it's a good point. I think Game Pass specifically has, revolutionized like the way I have even been purchasing games because for the longest time, video games were like my first love before, comic books in the last couple of years. So I was buying video games like crazy. But even now with Game Pass, it's like, oh, maybe I won't buy that one day one, and then eventually it comes out on Game Pass. Seems like, right? Guardians of the Galaxy is a good call because that's another one that it's really interesting because you mentioned you like the Guardians movie, Sarah, um, but after playing the Guardians game, I was so blown away that I'm trying to think about it now. That might be like my Guardians of the Galaxy. You know what I mean? Like, I love Chris Pratt and Vin Diesel. He says I am Groot so well or whatever, but like I really think that the Guardians game just blew me away. I wasn't expecting like anything from it.
I think
I
they
remember
really
when they
got the
showed
comedy well.
gameplay. Right. No, dude,
Yeah.
absolutely, totally. Like, it's such a funny, like heartwarming story, um, but then it just has really awesome gameplay that totally clicked with me. So I remember when they first announced it and they showed gameplay, and I'm like, this kind of looks like garbage. I'll be honest with you, it kind of looks like garbage. Why can't you switch between all the Guardians? Doesn't seem like you should be able to. But no, they stuck to the vision and they're like, no, you're gonna play as Peter Quill, and we're gonna tell you a really awesome story. I don't know, what would you say, Sarah? Maybe like 20 hours, maybe less. I can't
Uh,
really remember.
well, I'm not very good, so a lot of the bosses take me a couple hours.
Right, right.
But
Um,
it was worth quite a few streams, of multiple hours at a time.
right, and that one was interesting to me too because it if you're trying to think of a superhero video game, not very often are they like shooters. You know what I mean? Um, like we talked about Arkham and Spider-Man. Those are like classic beat 'em up. Sure, you have shooting different gadgets and stuff like that. Um, but Guardians of the Galaxy is first and foremost it's a shooter game, and they really nailed it. They did a super good job on top of being a great story. Um, that was like I was like number 3 last year when I played it on my game of the year. I really enjoyed it. So that's a good pull too, and like you said, free on Game Pass. So
Hmm.
yeah,
I think
that's a good one.
the thing I learned after watching Sarah play is that I respect her a lot because she Sarah, you play games on stream and you finish them. But you finish them on stream. And like there's games for me like Spider-Man. When I started playing Spider-Man, I don't think I slept for 2 days. I just never stopped playing, but like you somehow like finished a mission and you're like, "Okay guys, next stream We'll continue. I don't have that willpower, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the way I see it is that it's a journey, right? So if I'm taking everyone on a journey, I don't want to drop them off and then pick them up and they don't know what's going on. I want to ride the whole journey with them. I don't care if I have to wait a month or 2 weeks or the next day to do it, but I want everyone to understand and be on this journey together. And sometimes I want to play a game when I'm not streaming, but I have my certain games that I don't stream, and I just do it whenever I want to, just for fun, because that's what games are. They're supposed to be fun. And yeah, I think that's kind of how I balance that. And yeah, it's been fun.
I
Yeah,
want to ask
that
because I
takes a
know
lot of self control. Yeah.
this is something we have all sank hours and hours into, but we're all big into Animal Crossing here, right? At least we were when we first got it. Because I do want
For
to say,
sure.
I lost sleep. I might have lost friends because of that game. Um, I think I dedicated more time into that than my personal life for a while. Um, what are your thoughts on that game? It's a pretty simple game when you think about it.
Well, so
Yeah.
so Christian, to answer your question, and maybe this is something what you should have done, like I did, right? If your girlfriend is complaining, oh, you never hang out with me, you're always playing Animal Crossing, you get her a Switch Lite, get her Animal Crossing, then you're hanging out, she's sitting right next to you, and you can visit each other's towns, Christian. So you really dropped the ball on this one, dude. Um, that
Or
no,
did
didn't
he?
drop the ball. Let me explain this right here, buddy. That game came out March 23rd,
hmm
2020.
oh
And if
yeah,
you
dude.
remember what happened like 2 weeks after that,
I know
right?
what you're about to say, dude.
The
Oh yeah,
whole world stopped. So
I
my
know.
girlfriend wasn't there with me. I was in my room for 2 months. She was in her own house. So I had all the time in the world to dedicate my entire life into that game. But now
Dude,
she
it's
has
so
a
funny you
Switch
bring that
and
up.
she's playing it.
Right. Dude, that's so funny you bring it up because I mean, this isn't superhero related, but it is funny because we all kind of had the same experience being like college kids during COVID, right? Um, COVID hits, shuts down all the classes, and then you just have so much free time. And Animal Crossing really came out at like the perfect time. They could have, they probably, they didn't want to plan it better, but it just so happened that that was like the game of the year because they released it right when everybody was home. That was such a fun time.
So
Everybody was
just so you
coming
have an
over.
idea, just so you have an
Yeah.
idea about how perfect it was. So March 22nd is my dad's birthday. Shout out to my dad. He listens to this sometimes. Um, well, he listens to it all the time. The 2 episodes, issues. Um,
All the time, 24/7.
my girlfriend came over with her family, for my dad's birthday. The game midnight. The game comes out. I download it, and that was the last time I saw my girlfriend for like 2 months because the morning after they said, "Hey, we're gonna do a quarantine." So Animal Crossing came out the first day of quarantine. It was
Right.
perfect. They couldn't have
Dude, it
planned
was
it. It
so
was
hard
not
to
like
find a Switch. Yeah.
it
They
was
were
they
they
I
were
were
got
having
mine this year.
right.
I just started Animal Crossing back in March,
Gotcha. No, I
but I've
took
had a lot of time since it's been like summer break, just like a week or two ago. So
right,
I've
right.
I've spent a lot of time on that.
Um, so I'm trying to look through, and I don't know. Does anyone have any other video game, comic book video games that they would be remiss if they didn't bring up before the episode ended? And I guess while you guys are thinking, I'll throw out some. Um, so I know it's not like a traditional um, comic book or whatever. I guess you would probably consider it a manga. I'm not sure, but the Scott Pilgrim video game. I don't know if you guys um, wherever like experienced that one, but essentially it was a side scroller beat 'em up in the same way that like the old Ninja Turtle game was, or the Simpsons like arcade game.
Did it come out recently, like this year?
So that's another funny story because it got it's the same thing as the Deadpool game where it got caught in like licensing whatever, but they recently like remastered and put it out, which a lot of
Yeah.
people
Okay.
didn't think would ever happen, because that was another game that came out PSN Network, everybody was playing it, but then they delisted the game. Um, so like if you didn't have it downloaded on your console, you just couldn't download it anymore. Um, but yeah, that one always stuck with me too because I never played, side scroll beat 'em up games quite like that. Um, and being a big fan of the movie, um, the Edgar Wright film, that was always a fun one to play as well. And then,
I own it. I need to give it a try. I found it for like
I
five
mean,
dollars.
dude, yeah,
I
that'd be a fun one. It's really hard though, but yeah,
I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention what, in a lot of people's minds, is the worst video game of all time, which is Superman 64. Superman 64 is
yeah,
by a million people considered to be the worst game ever created. And I got to play it. I will say that. And it is the worst game I've ever played. It's unplayable.
yeah. That's an interesting one, because in that era, right? If you're trying to think of it, Superman's super popular. All the movies are popping off, and how would you? What's the best way to translate such a powerful hero into a video game? You make him fly through rings. It makes perfect sense. But no, that one has always made me laugh because it's so classically bad, and it's like, how do you? I don't know how they could have made it better, honestly. Like from a game design perspective, like I think that's why for so long we just haven't seen a superhero game. Is because it's like, what do you even do in a superhero game, right? Um, but yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that one, Christian. We're supposed to talk about the best ones, not the worst. No,
Okay,
I'm glad you
that's the
mentioned
thing.
it though because
I think of like superhero games, and I think of the ones like either I've heard a lot about, which is Superman, and the Flash is my favorite superhero. I've said it a couple times. There's been a Flash game in development. I think right now they're not doing it anymore, but for 20 years they've been trying to do one, and I don't think they ever will, and it's disappointing. So those are the video games I know about, the failures.
yeah, and I think that's an interesting point too because for the longest time there was just like this drought of a good superhero video game. It makes perfect sense. It's like it seems like it'd be the perfect medium for it, but over and over again you see just like failure after failure, or like maybe one game will come out and it'll pop off for a little bit. Like I'm looking here at this list, Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions, or like Web of Shadows. Like those are pretty good games. Maybe like a 7 out of 10, 6 out of 10. But then the Arkham games come out, and that kind of changed the landscape. And right now, we're kind of in this like renaissance of obviously the MCU's popping off, superhero movies. We talked about the DCU last time. I won't get into it, but the movies are popping off. The video games are popping off as well. Like we're about to have um, Suicide Squad: Kill the Justice League's about to come out. Gotham Knights is
Gotham
about to come
Knights.
out. Oh, dude, I'm so pumped for that.
Oh my god, pre-ordered.
I
But then, like,
I
even then, you
think
have Spider-Man 2's coming
the
out, and
I mean, what they changed, I think, is, and by the way, Wolverine, I'm excited for that one. It's made by the same
hmm,
developers as Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 is coming out. The change they made is pretty simple in my mind. We stopped getting superhero games based on movies and started getting superhero games based on superheroes. That's the change.
yeah, no, totally. Like it's you know, you can't just get the person who owns your development company can't just say, hey, we just got the license to spit out a video game and we're gonna half-ass it. It really does feel like no, these developers like care so much about the property. They go to Disney, Marvel, and say, hey, we love Wolverine. Here's our Wolverine game pitch, and it just like blows their mind, and they're like, yeah, absolutely, greenlight it. So it really does feel like there is that care that we just hadn't gotten before, um, and it's really starting to change. And we mentioned a couple, but there's even more at other genres, like the people who made maybe it's not the people who made XCOM, but it's an XCOM like game, Midnight Suns, right? Um, so like even like the tactical genre is getting a superhero game, or beat 'em ups like I mentioned before, and all this different things are starting to come out, and I think we're in a really good spot for. I say it all the time. Best time ever to be a nerd, but in video games, that's true as well. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I guess maybe a good last question would be, out of the games that are upcoming, that are superhero based, what are you guys most excited for? I guess I'll throw it to Sarah first.
Um, I would say Gotham Knights or Suicide Squad. I
Yeah.
don't have a definitive answer between the two, but just because we have more sneak peeks of Gotham Knights, I am leaning towards that, and it's more soon. It's next month.
Yeah, it's so crazy because so I think to answer my own question, um, I think for me it would be I would probably say Suicide Squad just because Rocksteady is such an acclaimed studio. Not to say that WB Montreal like isn't good. I mean they did Origins, and I thought that was a really good game as well. Um, but I think for me I would lean towards Rocksteady just because I trust them with anything. Um, but I'm trying to think. It's been
And it's something we haven't seen before, like Suicide Squad in a video game.
true. Yeah, it's not just. 'Cause I remember there was like a lot of talk of, what was Rocksteady's next project before they announced it being Suicide Squad. People are like, oh, maybe it's like a Justice League game, or all these leaks were coming out and they're working on like a Superman game and all that stuff. Um, and after 10 years of like development, they finally are about to release a game, which is really exciting. Um, and even for Gotham Knights, I think it's been like 7 years, 7 or 8. So it's just kind of crazy how time flies. Christian, what would you say is like your most anticipated, if you would have to
So,
choose? I think you just said Wolverine.
I've been
but,
excited.
uh,
Yeah, I've been excited about the Spider-Man game because Venom's gonna be in it and Miles Morales. I'm gonna say this right now. First of all, I love Miles. Miles is fantastic. The Miles video game felt like DLC. It didn't feel like a full game. So if in Spider-Man 2, I hope they gave Miles the presence he deserves. And the reason why I'm excited about Wolverine is because if they handle it like Spider-Man when it's an open world, I think we'll get a much darker game than we're expecting. And like yeah, he doesn't swing, but he has a motorcycle, and that's pretty cool if you ask me. And I kind of hope we go to like not just one city, like some fast travel to another place, but still the open world element with Wolverine. I feel like would be cool.
Yeah, and that's a good point too. So Insomniac is developing both Spider-Man 2 and Wolverine. I think they also probably have like a Ratchet and Clank game in development as well. I don't know how they do it. They put out such consistently good stuff. Um, but personally, I think I kind of want Wolverine to be more linear, kind of in the same way that Guardians was. Maybe with like different hub worlds that you can go between with your motorcycle or whatever. But I trust Insomniac with everything. If they decided to do it open world, let's do it. Open world. I'm ready. Um, but yeah, I think there's no. Looking at this list, I mean, we kind of covered all the big superhero video games. So yeah.
Maybe if there's any favorites of the people listening, we would like to hear.
For sure. I think we're trying to figure out with on Spotify, there's a way to do like polls and stuff, but also you can ask a question. On YouTube, definitely leave in the comments like what your favorite superhero game. Either we mentioned it or we didn't. We would love to hear it. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll end it. I think we have covered everything. So I do want to say, and I know we said it before, our community is about like pushing our creators. So I will say this. I know Sarah's my friend, and I went to college with her, and she's friends with my girlfriend. Whatever. I honestly enjoy her streams. Please go watch her streams. Sarah, is there anything you want to promote?
No. If you want more of me, you can find me on Twitch at I'm Lowkey Dumb. That's it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll link it for sure. It'll be down there. No worries. It's a lot of fun. I'm a subscriber. Maybe it laughed. I forget,
We
but
yeah, I do pay money to watch my friend play video games, so I will say that. But
yeah.
yeah, I think you know it. We talked about movies, we talked about video games, we talked about comics. Being a comic book fan is not just about reading books. Yes, we like reading books over here, but if you just like the video games, like the video games. If you just like the movies, like the movies. You know, if you just like knowing the characters by memory, just do that. It's whatever works for you. And yeah, just I guess that's it for me. Cody, you want to say anything before you leave?
No, it's no.